Joanna Rakowski.
Yay.
Welcome. Yeah, I did say it
Hello.
correctly. Yeah, welcome to
Yes.
the show. Thank you so much
Hello.
for coming. I am just in awe of the book that you have written, Chasing the Daylight. Fantastic book, fantastic story.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what it was like, because your story is so fascinating. And yeah, if you can just give me a brief rundown of what has been like.
The story is mainly about my transformation, my personal transformation from a Polish ballerina who immigrated from Poland and is trying to find herself and reinvent herself, to find herself in a new country, a new culture, a new language, and belong to the country by giving it all. And not just, living here and functioning, but contributing actually to the society at large. So was presented with the idea and opportunity to join the National Guard, Army National Guard, for the as a an intelligence specialist with the linguist unit in Chicago, and I qualified and I enlisted. So that's how the journey basically starts. It's about personal transformation, becoming the U.S. Army intelligence soldier first, and then becoming an officer as well. So there are several parts in the book which basically documents the story of from the beginning of this transformation, like the decision making process, what prompted me and was the driving force to make that decision and inspiration as well. But there's also a very intricate story of the actual training, how it happened, because we only see fragments of that, and it's a usually Hollywood version, dramatized a little bit, but we rarely see the emotions that are going through someone's mind, especially someone who's a grown up like I was. I was already 31 when I joined, so everything, everybody around me was, in their 70s, 20s, almost like my kids. So different mindset. For me, this was not about an adventure and, all that macho thing. It was about true personal transformation of becoming something bigger, something more than just the tip of my nose, something important, basically be part of this country. And the book also highlights different stages of my married life, how my relationship with my husband was progressing, what happened to it, and how it was influenced basically by me being a soldier. Because let's don't forget that people who serve, their marriages are affected by the service, no matter if they are going to war or not. The separation alone and the fact that the other half of the married couple is somewhere serving alone, away from home, and completely a part of the system that they have no control of, it could be very taxing on the relationship. And that person who stays home needs to be mature enough and understand what this other person is going through and why, and be a supporter. So that's very important part of being a service member. And then finally, the third part of the book is my memories of my lost relationship with my dear friend, professor from University of Warsaw in the 90s, before my departure to the US. And that relationship is described also in the background. It revolves around its own basic story. It's the core of the friendship that is starting, developing, and then eventually falling apart. And that's why my book is kind of three-dimensional. It has the story of me, of my transformation in the service, in the army, becoming a soldier. The second is the story of my marriage, and the third is the story of my friendship. And they eventually all converge at the last moment in a very unexpected kind of ways. But that was life, so that's what happened.
Can you tell me just step by step, just a few things? Because obviously, some of my listeners have no idea, right? So, you
Hmm.
were born in Poland,
Hmm.
you went to ballet school in Warsaw, and then you
Yes.
eventually came to the US. Can we talk just, in a few words, not words, few sentences about just how the story unfolded? And then I would love to talk to you about you making a decision to belong to this country in a serious way, not like majority of us immigrants were just kind of don't think about it. You really made a commitment. So I would love to touch on both of these things, but before we even get there, like if you can just give me a brief of your life, just really quick.
It started basically from always being drawn to the artistic professions. I was considering dancing, music, or artistic gymnastics. And in Poland, I was part of this during my primary school years. And at some point, I really wanted to be a concert master in a class of violin. And that's what I thought I was going to be. But then, my mom showed me this little booklet about ballet schools and other artistic schools. And when I saw the Warsaw Ballet School, I said, that's it. That's where I'm going. Screw the, violin and all that. I'm going to be a ballerina. So we went the next year, and I was 8 years old at that time. And the next year, we went to the Warsaw recruiting exams, and I passed the entrance exam. So I was admitted. Well, I was surprised. Guess what? Now I'm in Warsaw, basically. So I left my hometown of Kielce at that point and spent the following 9 years being in ballet boarding school, learning my profession as a ballerina. And that was my dream. That's what I thought I was going to be doing. But times have changed in Poland. There was a big economic and artistic crisis all throughout the country. The artistic professions were basically disappearing. We had no dancers, no singers, no actors. Everybody was just fleeing the country basically because they couldn't realize themselves in Poland due to budget cuts and the economic crisis. So, since the arts were not supported anymore by the Ministry of Art and Culture, there was no point in continuing in that field because you would basically just have no job or have a job that you go to and do nothing. So it's pretty much nonsense. So I decided to go change my profession a little bit. Went to a University of Warsaw to study French, and I studied French for 5 years, being translator and also the French teacher, specializing in French culture and literature as well. But in the meantime, I also joined the studies at the National Music of Chopin in Warsaw and studied basically dance pedagogy with a specialty in ballet. So I was also becoming formally certified teacher. That was also master's studies. And when I finished, I was basically working two different professions. I was working for French companies as a marketing specialist, but also teaching ballet and all sorts of dance, like Polish folk dance, in different organizations, also in ballet school in Warsaw, teaching ballet. So I was basically involved in both of those professions. And at that point, I met my husband to be, who was visiting Poland. His grandparents were living near Warsaw, and we met once, then we met the second time, year later, got engaged, and then 4 months later we got married there. So it was clear from the beginning that I'm not staying in Poland. I never wanted to stay in Poland. But since he came from the US and he obviously didn't want to go to Poland either, it was a very simple decision. We are going to live in US where he's from. So he was from where I'm living right now, Northbrook, Illinois. And at our wedding, I basically just waited a couple months for my visa and came back here to live with my husband. For the first few years, I was struggling with my sense of belonging, the new culture, language, everything was just so new because I was never planning on being in the US. Therefore, I'd never bothered to learn English. I was French specialist and I knew a little bit of German, but never English. So that was a big challenge. But I wanted to do something of myself. I wanted to do something that I could enjoy and basically become something. And at first, I was just attending college to be a graphic designer and desktop publisher. And that's where I saw this literature about the armed forces in the US. And I thought to myself, you know what? I could do it. I could totally do it. And then I started thinking more about it, like how would it look like if I joined the army? What do I have to offer? How can I contribute to the society who gave me so many opportunities to be something that and achieve things that I couldn't achieve in Poland. So I didn't have to think too long about this, to be honest with you. I just wanted to belong and be part of this culture.
You made a decision, basically, right? That
Mhm.
you want to belong. And can you, because there's additional benefits, right, of becoming part of the US Army. Can we talk about that? I know that a lot of grants have no clue, but I'm talking
Yes.
specifically about education.
Yes, even though those benefits were not my inspiring force, because I already had higher education behind me, and which allowed me to join the army at a higher rank instead of private. I joined as a corporal basically, but did provide me later the opportunities. I just took advantage of that. I didn't have to, but I did because it was worth it. So yes, mainly, like in my unit, there was a lot of Polish people. There was a lot of Russian people from different countries, different languages, and different stages of life. But most of them, they were not born in the US. But because they were qualified to be part of the linguist unit, which was part of the intelligence, they had easier way and opportunities to get their citizenship through service. For a certain job, you have to be basically a citizen in the intelligence. But if you qualify, then that process can be sped up because you qualify and you have something to offer to this country, then the country will help you. Same thing happens later when you get out of the army or become a veteran or whatnot. Depending on what your benefits level is, you can get a lot of different benefits when it comes to healthcare, insurance, taxes. In Illinois, veterans who are classified as 70% disabled, service connected, they don't pay property taxes, and et cetera, et cetera. And we have, discounts everywhere and certain benefits and military stores and different organizations like the American Legion offers a lot of products, financial product for veterans. USAA alone, it's a military oriented organization, financial guru, banking and investment company, and also insurance company that offers tremendous benefits to veterans or active duty service members. So there's a lot of that.
Yeah, I want to now touch a little bit on your inner journey, right? Because obviously you are a completely different person than you were when you came.
I hope so.
There's no other way, right? You had to become
Yeah,
a different
yeah.
person.
You gotta be something. Hmm.
Yeah. So one, I think of the biggest challenges where it comes to inner growth is that we have that part of us that doesn't want to change. We have that part of us that's terrified of the change itself because that means that we're going outside of our comfort zone and
Hmm.
there's such a huge level of unfamiliarity in that new reality that we're
Hmm.
creating. So I'm curious, what has it been in your mindset that has allowed you to keep on going forward no matter what?
Yeah, that was not an easy kind of thing to do, but once you decide which way you go, you kind of have to stay with that. You can't go back and doubt yourself and reinvent yourself, your ideas, because it's not going to work. So basically, first thing that you have to realize in a huge change like that, when you're trying to become a soldier all of a sudden, for Christ's sake, you have to accept the fact that this is gonna take time. That this is not a question of a week or even 2 months. This is gonna take years. This is not a transformation due to the magic wand and something amazing is gonna happen overnight. It takes a lot of effort, physical effort, mental effort, especially for me not knowing English at the beginning. I was struggling tremendously and I was thinking so many times, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? When will I start finally understanding what these people are talking about around me, what all this stuff means? But for each doubt, for each unknown, and this scary looking big eyes in your face telling you, oh my god, this is scary, you have to kind of come up with a solution for each thing individually. So for my language issues, I basically had to create my own dictionary, write down on the back of my notebook all the terminology that I needed to desperately remember. I needed to describe in detail what this means, or whatever I needed to write down, I had to write down to find my language in this whole situation, to feel more secure and better that I am part of it. After all, I'm not just a monkey, repeating stuff around. I have to understand. So my brain was spinning. It was tremendous, but I had to write stuff down for months to understand what all these new terminology meant. That was number one for language. But I also had to ask people around as I gained a little more confidence and actually started having dialogues with my fellow soldiers, because at first I was just mute. I was so scared. But when I started talking to them, I actually started also asking questions like, what do you mean by this, or what does this mean, or what did you just say? Just ask, because if I didn't, I would be just guessing and guessing and stressing and never knew, what is around me. So I had to work up the courage to do that and self-discipline to note everything. As far as the physical aspect of that fear and unknown and how long this is going to take for me to pass successfully physical fitness test, because when I started, for example, I was basically subjected to so-called trial test for fitness assessment. It wasn't even a test, but it was basically an assessment before shipping to basic training. We were in the reception battalion, and they asked us to do, as many push-ups as we can and as many sit-ups as we can, and to run, like, I don't know, half a mile. I think it was like below 12 minutes. And I had never run distance on time. I had never run, period. Well, a little bit when I was home before, preparing for basic training, but it was like few times I run. It wasn't a practice like the kids have in high school here. So it was a strange concept to me. So I remember this assessment. I made like one push-up maybe and seven sit-ups. One push-up. It was probably wrong anyway. Yeah. Well, yeah, but now I can't even do one. But this is how it's scary. You think there is a chart and it tells you if you are female of age 31 to pass the PT test, meaning 60% of whatever 100% is, you have to do, let's say, 17 or 18 push ups. And I'm thinking, and I can do one. And how in the world am I going to do 17, right? How in the world am I going to run 2 miles if I can't even run half, right? So those fears are huge. These eyes of that fear are huge looking at you. And you're thinking, okay, I have to qualify by the end of this week 9th or 10th of basic training so I can move on with my next training. Because if I can pass the fitness test, I'm not moving on. They're going to keep me here and I'm going to have to train extra to pass the darn test. So this is scary. And for this, again, there was a different system. I had basically decided that every time I have any few seconds to spare, usually before going to bed, when everything was put away and we only basically had time to write letters home or whatnot. Right before going to bed, I would lay down on the floor, hook my feet on the bunk bed, basically, and do push-ups and sit-ups. And if weather was permitting, it was enough time in the evening, I would basically get in my fitness training clothes and run around the building pretty much blindly because I had no idea how many miles is around the building and how many times I have to run to get even close to what I need to achieve. So I was basically eyeballing it and stressing about it tremendously, thinking, am I running 2 miles already? Am I running half a mile? How many am I running? And how fast am I running? And I was just panicking, thinking, oh my God, I just have to keep running. It doesn't matter. Just keep running around that building and practice as much as you can and do those push-ups and do those sit-ups and you'll be okay. And that's what surgeons were helping us to do. They were like, don't focus on the numbers now. Just keep exercising, just keep doing this effort, and you're going to be okay at the test. At the test, your body works differently. There's more adrenaline. You are more motivated. You're going to give your best. But right now, just keep training. And it happened. I remember I was in shock when I suddenly was able to run 2 miles without stopping because you cannot stop. But not only without stopping, but I actually made my time. I was running like 20 minutes. It was like, are you kidding me? I'm running 20 minutes, 2 miles, and I couldn't run half a mile in 12 just weeks ago. So that gave me hope. And I was thinking, yes, if I just keep moving forward, whatever effort I choose, if it's an intellectual effort or mental effort or physical effort, I have to keep going because the results will come. You just have to be patient with yourself and with the time and with the process. And yeah, you have to trust the process because your body will adjust. And, eventually in my next training, when I was already in Arizona, I had some crazy results. I was running like 18 minutes, 2 miles. I was doing 35 push ups and I was doing 86 sit ups in 2 minutes. So, the human body is tremendous. And I was getting older. I wasn't getting any younger. I was literally getting older and better and better with time. So everything was possible. And that's what kept me going, to just kind of like focus on this moment of self improvement, stick with your system, and just don't let yourself get distracted, basically. And that's it.
As I'm listening to you, there's a few things that came to my mind. First of all, you have mentioned asking questions, right? To ask
Yes.
questions, we have to be humble enough to ask questions. And that is, I am seeing, and I know that was also within me, that at one point I had to make a decision for the same reason. It's like, I do not understand. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna be pretending any longer that I understand. I don't care what people think about me. I'm gonna be asking the most basic questions if necessary. I have a right to ask a question, and I have noticed that in our culture, it's there is the sense of pride that we have, right? And so it was like we're going against that pride, but at the same time, it's humbling and it's absolutely necessary.
Yes.
So yeah, just listening to you, I thought to myself, my goodness, right? How many of immigrant women hold themselves back because they are not willing to be asking questions that they are themselves judging themselves. It's not like the outside world is judging.
Yes, you're basically cutting your own branch you're sitting on. This is really counterintuitive, because if you think about it, and you're in survival mode, you have to reach out. You're not going to just insist that, yeah, I'm going to do it by myself and drown, when you have someone next to you who could just give you a hand. That's just nonsense. But yes, it happens that I would say false sense of pride, and actually sabotaging yourself. You have to grow out of it. You have to get out of your shell, break that weird, almost shame like feeling for asking questions, and just do it. And I had to learn it the hard way, because I noticed that if I'm not communicating to someone that I don't understand something, nobody's going to guess it. They don't look directly into my head thinking, does Joanna Rakowski understand what she's saying? Because she kind of looks like she understands, but does she understand what we're saying to her? No. Well, they're not going to investigate that. And actually, counterintuitively, in my book, there is a scene where I do create an impression that I understand everything, but I don't. And when I voice it, I get punished by that, for that, because people are like, "Well, you understand everything, right? You can communicate everything, so we have no reason to believe you that you have a language problem." And I said, "No, I do, because I do not understand everything. That's why I'm questioning certain things." And they just couldn't believe it, because they figured that if I can express myself on a basic level, they understand me. That means I understand everything too. But I didn't, and I had to say it, and I had to fight for it, and I paid the price for it, but it was worth it, because you know ultimately I got help that I needed, and others as well, as a result of that process. But it was heartbreaking, it was scary, it was stressful, but I couldn't just sit there and be ignored, and people assuming that I understand everything and I don't have a language problem. No, I did have a language problem, and I had to say it. So it's official, and it had to be addressed officially. That there are people like me. It wasn't just about me, but there was a group of people who had language problem, and that became very obvious eventually when it was brought up the way it was brought up.
Yeah, so thanks to the fact that you were humble enough to admit it, others were helped as well. I would love to talk to you briefly about your relationship to America.
Hmm.
It's again that subject that many of us immigrants don't. It's almost like we have two groups: people who have made a decision on whom they want to be in this country and how they want to relate to this country, and people who just assume that the fact that they just don't think about it means that they don't have a relationship with America.
Mm-hmm.
What is America to you? What do you, the United States, obviously, right?
Mhm.
I'm saying
Mhm.
America, but we know what we're talking about.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, what is this country to you?
If I had to say one word, it's a chance. It's basically an opportunity that you have to see and seek and also reach for it. It's not given to you. It's not on a silver platter. It's not there, at the airport platform the moment you get off the plane. It's not there. You have to still do work, but it's like digging for gold. You have to find the site, get it out, clean it up, make something of it, and let it, be yours, or you become something else, having that jewel. uh, and that's the opportunity. You have to work on it. So America basically gave me, through this process that I'm describing, of looking for the opportunity and finding it, and then using it to my advantage, is basically based on the fact that I couldn't achieve certain things in Poland. And coming here, I didn't know if I would be able to achieve them here either, because I didn't know the country, I didn't know how America works. But very quickly, I realized that I have so many more opportunities, so much more freedom to pursue what I wanted, because even when I decided to attend college, and suddenly study graphic design, nobody really cared what my previous background was. They just needed basic paperwork. And I very quickly obtained a scholarship because I had very good grades in the first semester. So that wasn't something that was that easy in Poland. But here it was pretty much like, you want to do it. And it was the first thing that was like the biggest shock for me, that there was no barriers basically. Nobody asked you like, how old are you, what you've been doing, why you want to do this. It's like, you want to do it. Pay us money, you pay money. But that's not the problem. In Poland, you pay money for many things too. It's a whole, and it's not that easy. But the thing is that I slowly started discovering, it's like, yeah, I can just pursue this or pursue that and become this or that. And it's pretty much like limitless. And in 96, a year after I came here, I already established my first business with my husband. It was a marketing consulting firm. And I was already designing newsletters for clients and stuff using very, very basic software and just my intuition more than anything. But it was possible. It was so easy. I attempted to establish business in Poland. I needed so much money to establish a corporation. It was mind-boggling. It was some 40 million zloty at that time. It was 92. So, I don't know how much money is it in today's money, but I was
A
making
huge
6
amount.
million back then.
That is
So
a lot of money,
I
even
think
for
so.
back then.
Yeah,
That is
I
a
think,
lot of money. That's crazy. I
yes.
don't
And they
know.
wanted to put that money in some bank so you can establish a corporation. That's limiting someone's freedom. And people ask me so many times, oh, what freedoms you have limited? Well, it depends what you are trying to do in Poland. If you are just sitting there working a regular full-time job and you have no other goals in your life, then yeah, your freedoms are pretty much not limited. But if you want to have a business, your freedoms are limited. If you want to pursue a PhD, your freedom is limited. If you want to have a place to live, your possibilities are limited. Because let me tell you, the rates in 93, when I was already making good money, I was making 17 million zloty a month. I don't even know how much this is, but it was a lot of money back then. And I tried to purchase a condo. They were building new things. There was a new thing in Poland back then, that we had actually developers building new complexes. And I just wanted like little apartment, little mieszkanie, and it's like, they told me that the percentage rates were like 43%.
Oh
And
my
I'm
God.
going to be paying this off for the rest of my life, plus my kids and their kids, 3 generations. I almost fell off the chair. I am not lying. This was, I think it was called like alice Alice financing something, some kind of product with a female name. I think you can still find it on the internet. That was the reality. So three major things: education, having your business, and having your place to live. Impossible for me in that country, making good money.
Yeah.
Here I come to America, I already have a place to live. I can buy a house within 2 years. Of course, not cash, but I wasn't trying to buy a house for cash in Poland either. I was just trying to get a loan. But here I could get a loan just after 2 years of being here. Within 1 year, I had my business. Within the same year, I was already a student in a college in a completely different profession that nobody cared about, and I had a scholarship. And then I had an American job, where I was pretending to speak English because I couldn't speak English. But again, it didn't matter. It was good enough that I was, saying those 5 words maybe that I knew. It was good enough to give me that job. And I had an American job, a real paycheck within a year. So, a lot of opportunities for me came very quickly available. And it was just a question of moving forward. And when I saw this opportunity for joining the army, and that I could become of something even bigger, not just me, my business, my home, be part of actual America, defend America and their values that they stand for. I'm not talking about going to wars and shooting people. I'm talking about the ideals, and I'm an idealist. So when the freedoms of personal freedoms are important, the values of democracy for all, equality. Yeah, I know for some people it sounds theoretical and idealistic, but these are really, really living here comparing to Poland,
Yes.
You really have these opportunities, you have democracy. People are complaining, but they never lived somewhere else. I guarantee you. You have the good comparison how personal freedoms can be limited. And we know in other Middle Eastern countries that's like obviously even worse, but we have like tremendous opportunities here. And as a veteran, and I went back to school and I got me another two masters and a PhD. And again, nobody asked me why PhD in this one or that. I just qualified, wrote the letters, got recommendation letters from other people, and basically pursued my PhD finally in a different field. But hey, who cares? I could do it too. So I did it, and why not? That's why I like, you have to become part of the system, contribute to the system to be able to use the system properly. You have to give in order to receive. You can't be just lingering around and wondering, where is this happening for me? When is this coming to me? No, you have to work on it. You have to create those opportunities. But once you do, you 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 will have everything that you need.
Yeah, that is
So that's
absolutely
what's
true.
America for me. It's a dream, my own American dream.
Yeah, and it's you're such an inspiration. I hope that other other immigrant women that are listening to us will be inspired by your story like I was, and
I
we'll
hope
make
to.
sure that they have a link to purchase the book and they can read more about your story and find out the details. But there's one more thing that came to my mind that I would love to touch on. Just this one last little thing. Your story and my story, it differs a little bit because when I came to the US, I was surrounded by Americans, and so I was just forced to learn American English. I knew British English before I came, but then I was like, there's no one that I could speak Polish with.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I struggled, it forced me to really learn this
Yes.
language.
Yes.
But my question to you is, because you came with a Polish speaker, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
husband spoke Polish, and
Yeah.
then you landed here surrounded by Polish community. But then eventually you had to make a decision to walk away from Polish language.
Yes. Yes.
Can you can you talk about that a little bit? What was that like, and what was that process like?
Yeah, the main thing is my husband was American born Polish provenance person, but his Polish was very basic. So it wasn't really that straightforward communicating with him in Polish because, maybe talking about weather and a couple of, going to a bar and have a beer. But other than that, it was just difficult to communicate. So that was number one motivation to switch to English immediately. But I just couldn't because it doesn't work that way. So it was kind of fun. Like he was teasing me all the time. At the beginning, was like every day he was asking me, "Can you speak English yet? Can you speak English yet?" It's like, he was
Oh my
expecting this to
God.
become like a thing over time, overnight, and that like one day he's gonna wake up and I'm gonna speak English. And I always would tease him back, saying, one day I'm gonna speak English so well you're gonna regret that I speak English. And it
Nice.
actually happened because he could never later win an argument with me in English. He was like, "Oh my gosh, I wish you could speak English." But at some point, I went once I crossed that barrier of insecurity and inability to just let go. I was unstoppable. It didn't matter to me if I had an accent or not. But going back to Polish community, yes, I came to his family. My family was never here, so my only relatives was his relatives, and obviously they were Polish. So we only practically spoke Polish, and I started feeling that I'm sinking. I'm feeling debilitated, like a disabled, basically person, and not being able to communicate with the American speaking environment was not helpful. Well, not helpful. And I didn't want to be that person who counts on others constantly for anything, asking, what do they say? What is this person asking me? Or I don't want to be that person. I never was that person when I was learning French. I was struggling learning French because I was learning it in Poland. So I was never really in a natural French speaking environment. But even though I was basically doing my best to use French and struggling with it, being scared and not being able to express myself for the longest time, which is also in the book. But then it happened again in America. But here I had a choice. I had a choice to basically do separate myself from the Polish community and don't count on them constantly for everything, for a job, for bank, for post office, for this, for that. Just learn the actual genuine language that is used here. And it's going to be just once. You do it once, you learn it once, and then you just practice it. So it stops being a struggle eventually. And I gave myself 6 months at the beginning to start pretending to speak English because I knew I'm not going to just start speaking. I just didn't know enough words. But to pretend, basically, like play the game and don't let people know first thing you meet them say, "Oh, I don't speak English, no speak English." I don't want to be that person. So I'm just going to engage in a dialogue like nothing happens and just listen, say yes, smile and see what happens. If I can carry a conversation like that for a few seconds, that means I can pretend to speak English. And eventually, by the time someone realizes that I actually don't speak English, I can pretend for a while and actually feel good about it, thinking that, hey, this is how it feels to speak English or understand English without telling someone that you actually don't. So it's
That's
like
a great
this
idea.
cheating yourself, but cheating others as well. And I was playing that game for months, obviously, because I had also no choice. I was working for an American company. People were talking to me. And how helpful would it be to say to customers, I don't speak English? What are they going to do about it? They're not going to put any words in my head and switch the switch and say, okay, now you do speak English. No. So what's the point, right? It's better to just engage in a dialogue and say yes and smile because what is the worst thing they're going to want from you? They're not going to ask you to kill someone and you answering them, yes, of course, right? That's not going to happen. So they're going to ask you for something like, can you help me with something? Or where is this one? Where is that one? And if you say yes, and they realize like, okay, this person doesn't speak English, it's okay. They're just gonna move on and ask someone else. But nobody's gonna ostracize you and judge you and say, how can this person be here? They can't speak English. Because this happens all the time, everywhere in America. You have people who just kind of speak and people who kind of don't speak. But they still there and they still could be helpful, but they're learning. You have to give them a chance, especially at the beginning, kind of get through this a cheating process of like immersing yourself. This is immersing yourself in the culture without using that crouch. of saying, I don't speak English. Well, yeah, you don't speak English, so what? Well, work on it and you will speak English. And that's the only solution here, because I know too many people from Polish environment here that are using this all their lives and saying, I don't speak English. Can I speak to someone who speaks Polish, on the phone, with the bank, with the hospital, with the post office? And yes, you will find translators pretty much everywhere. But why? I mean, this is to be counterintuitive. If you live here, you have to speak the language. You have to know their systems and their processes and the rules and regulations. You have to be able to read that, and maybe not be an expert, but at least on the basic level, what the taxes are about, what's the percentage in your state, how the law works, what's allowed, what's not, and basic stuff that you should be able to understand if you make some effort. But asking your English speaking friends constantly to translate your personal correspondence and your bills from insurance from hospitals, it's just it's just a burden. It's embarrassing to kind of have to do it for someone who has been here for 40 years and didn't bother to learn the basic stuff,
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm
to
thinking
manage
again,
their
like,
own life.
that's it. And I'm thinking that yes, it is easier not to learn it. It is easier to, from time to time, ask for help. But the price that they are paying, right,
Yes.
is so heavy because you're surrounded by people who have made an effort and have proven to themselves that it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
And then every time that you are not
Yeah.
taking that on, you're proving to yourself that somehow, some way, you're not equal in
Yes. You.
your
Yes.
intelligence, and you are, and you
Yes, and you're
are. So,
devaluing yourself. You're
yeah.
devaluing yourself. Yeah.
Well,
So,
this has been so good. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
oh,
You're
thank you.
such an
That's my pleasure.
inspiration. Yeah, you really are such an inspiration. I have been reading your book. It's been so, so good. It is not a thin book, you guys. It's pretty thick, so this is why I haven't finished it, but it is so good. We'll make sure to link
Thank you.
yeah, we'll make sure to link everything so that our fellow immigrant women and men can read your story and be inspired by it. It truly is such a story of with so many different levels of transformation. I just kept on reading and writing questions that I could
Oh,
ask my
super.
clients
I love
about.
when
It's
people
really, yeah,
do it. They do it all the time. They ask questions like, how did you do this? How did you deal with that? What happened there? And what happened that? It was like, this is good, because I wanted to have people some mental discoveries and questioning things and wonder about things, because this is a personal story. Obviously, this is about personal transformation, but those transformations are pretty much, all of us at some point will face some kind of decision about self transformation or reinvention or things like that. And it's in this sense, this book is quite universal, because when you read about this, you can imagine yourself in a similar situation, not maybe being in the army, but facing something else, like different kinds of choices, and thinking, what would Joanna do in my position, or things like that, and you think, based on what you read, she would do this, maybe I can do that, and kind of figure things out and help digest all this, stuff that is going on in your head when you're in the crossroads, when you have to do something with your life. But
yeah,
absolutely, this is meant to be questioning certain things about life and decision making and who you become eventually, and how and why.
beautiful work, really beautiful work. And what comes to
Thank you.
my mind, it has been like, I've been like, okay, if she can do it, I can do it.
That's the
It's
main
like
thing.
that,
Yes.
right? If she
Yes,
can do it, I can
absolutely.
do it. So thank you again. I am just so, so glad you've shared your journey this way, because that's another thing. There's so many beautiful immigrant stories that are not written about and not
Yes,
spoken
yes.
about, not written about. So the fact that you have given us this gift of your transformation is, I really am very grateful for it, because, like I said, it's gonna
Oh,
inspire a lot of people.
thank you. I'm very moved, but that just gives me hope that the book is achieving what my goal was, to basically make people feel better about certain things they're going through in life, and get that inspiration and think, like, if Joanna did it at the age of 31, I can do this and that at the age of 45 or whatnot, whatever that might be. But it's possible because it's all about those universal values, like what you believe in, what you give from yourself, and how do you work on your dreams, and how do you fight for them, and how do you believe in their beauty? Because that's what, Leonard Roosevelt was saying, that the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. And that's it. She doesn't talk about degrees, how old you are, how fat you are, if you're green or brown. The beauty of your dreams is the only important thing to lead you to your future.
Beautifully said.
That was not me, that was her. But
Yes,
she
but
she's
yes.
just amazing. Yes, I have it written down somewhere in my room and always look at it. I'm like, you better believe, woman, what you just said is just couldn't be more true. And thank you for that. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much, Evelina. It was a pleasure. You're a wonderful person. Thank you.